Hi, I'm Paul Lemberg, and I want to welcome you to the No Strategy Masterclass. Now, part of my background, part of my training is as a strategist. I worked as a strategist doing market research-based strategy for giant companies like IBM, Dell, EDS, the Bell companies like that. So I know what I'm talking about when I say that strategy is complicated, and the more complicated things are, strategy included, the more prone they are to error and failure. And that's why I designed the No Strategy. I worked hard so that it would be easy for you. The No Strategy is simple. It's designed in such a way as to require little or no understanding of strategy at all and be super simple to implement, and so simple that it's almost foolproof. So I'm going to jump in right here, but before I do, I have a few admissions that I want to make. And the first one is that I've never used this technology before. I've never done a Facebook Live, so if the tech gets a little off or a lot off, it's my learning curve. Number two, I'm dyslexic. I can't spell, I can't tell right from left, and I tend to write numbers incorrectly. So if there are errors in the slides, I can't do much about it now, but if you drop me a note, I'd appreciate it. Now, whenever I say this, some people ask, well, what about spell check? That should make it good. Well, the fact is that I tend to change my slides minutes before any presentation that I give. And, well, I introduce errors when I do that. So spell check isn't really a help unless I remember to use it every time I touch my slides. The third one is that I'm somewhat ADHD. Some people say I'm a lot. The benefit of this is that it helps me with creativity and it lets me make unusual connections between things. And over the years, that's been a huge help and very profitable for my private clients. But part of what it also means is that I've got very few filters in terms of what comes out of my mouth, and I love to talk. Now, I could speak about this topic easily for 10 hours or 2 weeks without notes, and it would be fascinating the entire time, but you probably wouldn't get what I promised. So I'm going to use slides to keep myself on track and be able to give you what I said I would. So here we go. No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. I wanted to give you some context for this entire class. This quote and the concepts behind it has informed all of my thinking about the No Strategy. No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. That's from a 19th century German field marshal, Helmuth von Moltke. And von Moltke believed that all you could really plan for was the very beginning of a military operation, because as soon as you encountered the enemy, everything went to hell and changed. So he thought that the secret to success was having a lot of options and keeping your options open and available to you. And one of the things von Moltke meant is that plans should be kept short and to the point, because for the longer time for which you plan, the more prone you are to failure. So, first rule, keep it simple. And you got to keep it simple because complicated leads to failure. Next, don't plan much, because all you can really plan for is the beginning of something. And if you make these long plans going out for like months and years, they're always bound to change. Now, details matter less. And the more details that you try to control, the more things will go wrong. Don't take it on faith. If you want to put a lot of details in your plans, you'll see what happens. Now, next, action matters more. It's actually truly the only thing that matters. So whatever plans you create, if you don't take action on them, then nothing's going to happen. And if you do take action, then something's going to happen. Action matters more. Testing and tracking matter a lot. This is just so you know what works, so you can see the trends, and ideally, you can even predict what's going to happen next. So the process is take action, test the action that you take, look at the results, track it, and then keep going. Next, don't make it complicated. I already told you why. Don't make it complicated. Complicated leads to failure. Don't shiny object it. Now, I love to do this. I love to take nouns and make them verbs. Don't look for shiny objects. The things that I'm going to be talking about throughout this presentation are all tried and true and have been around for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. The shiny objects are really exciting, but they're not necessarily what you need, and they lead you to things which aren't really time-tested and proven. Don't shiny object it. Lastly, don't try to beat the algorithms. Now, what does that mean? Don't try to beat the algorithms. And why isn't my slide changing? So the algorithms are the things that govern Facebook, and they govern Google, and they govern all the major internet-based utilities. And a lot of marketers try to beat the algorithms and bend them to their will. So here's the thing. I'll use Google as an example. Google has more PhDs working for it than any other single organization in the entire world. Now, you may be smart, and I bet you're really smart, but you're not smarter than hundreds of PhDs who are spending all of their time adjusting the algorithms to deal with whatever it is that you figured out. Don't try to do it. Let's keep things simple, okay? This entire program is in part about points of leverage, and we'll get into more specifics later about what those points of leverage are, but think about things like sales closing ratios, new customers, reducing your overhead, having a capable team, and maybe having unique IP. Those are all points of leverage. What does leverage mean? Leverage means getting more out of it than you put in. It's one of those words that people throw around a lot and don't necessarily know what they mean. It means getting more out than you put in. So, for example, if I buy a manufacturing plant, and it's a cheap one, I spend $1 million, and that facilitates an additional $10 million a year in profits, then I've gotten a ton of leverage. I've gotten a 10x leverage out of that million I spent for the plant. If I buy a house with $500,000 of debt and it's worth $1 million, that $500K in debt has allowed me to buy that $1 million house. That's leverage. Getting more out of it than you put in is leverage. Now, the other major point that we're going to talk about a lot is compounding. Now, everybody has experienced compounding when it comes to interest on credit cards or on a mortgage. Compounding is when a growth rate, like interest, is applied to the previous balance, but not just the principal, but whatever the interest that was added before. So you're multiplying on top of multiplying on top of multiplying, and that process just keeps going. Compounding can lead to huge amounts of growth. Let's take a look at something. Let's start with $100. And in year one, we're going to multiply that by 15%, and we're going to get $115. Now, 15% is not a random number, and it shows up throughout this masterclass. I'll say more about it later. But in the first year, we get $115. Now, we add a second year, and we get $132. The third year, we get $152, and the fourth year we get $175. Now that's not bad, but in the fifth year, we've doubled our principal. So 5 years of 15% growth compounded yields a doubling of what you started with. Now that's pretty cool. So let's look at something else. Small changes result in big changes over time. That is the message of compounding. But I want you to think about something, and it's an example you may have experienced. Let's compound a $500,000 loan for the mortgage on your new home at 7% interest, which is roughly what the interest rate is now. And it's a 30-year mortgage. That 30-year mortgage at 7% compounded will cost you approximately $1.9 million. And that's compounded annually. And you think, oh, you spent $500,000 on the loan. No, you actually have to pay back $1.9 million compounded annually. Now, if we compound it monthly, which is how your mortgage is actually calculated, that turns out to be $2.03 million. That's a lot of extra money, all from compounding. So compounding of small changes leads to big results over time. So let's add a new idea, which I call compound leveraging. And the point of compound leveraging is it's those important small changes, not just any small changes, but important small changes compounded become really big results over time. And that's the whole point of the no strategy strategy. And I'm going to show you how that works as we go on. Thing for you to remember is that almost any leverage point will do as long as you keep doing something. Almost any leverage point will do as long as you keep doing something. And if you walk away right here, remember this. Almost any leverage point will do as long as you keep doing something. And this system, the no strategy strategy, is all about making small changes, not big changes, small. And the reason is because small changes are easier to implement and they pose less risk to your business. Now, I want to show you something. When we talk about growing something by 15%, what that really means is multiplying it by 1.15. Multiply it by 1.15, that's what grows at 15%. Now, if we want to take 10%, some ratio that exists in your business, and we want to grow it by 15%, that's not 25%, it's 11.5%. Remember, we're taking 10%, 0.1, and we're growing it by 1.15, and it becomes 11.5%. You're not adding it. We're not talking about percentage points. We're talking about having it grow by that percentage. That's the difference. If it was 25%, we'd be adding the percentage points. So this is really important. The no strategy strategy is all about making small changes as big as 15%, which is not nothing, but it's not huge. So I want to show you what happens when you do this. This gets pretty exciting pretty fast. So in year one, if we took 4 points of leverage, and I still haven't shown you all of those, but let's say we take 4 points of leverage and they interact with each other. This is really important. For these points of leverage to compound, they must interact with each other. So let's say the first one is we're going to grow the number of leads, and then the second one, we're going to grow your closing ratio. I'm stuck on the word grow. We're going to grow your closing ratio. The third one is we're going to grow your first purchase revenue, the revenue on the first transaction. And the fourth one is we're going to grow your pricing. So these four things interact. And if we look at taking these 4 points of leverage and growing each one by 15% in the first year, what we get is 1.7 times what we started with. That's pretty cool. That's almost double. So we can almost double your business by taking 4 points of leverage and growing them by 15%. And this is doable because these 4 points interact. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now what happens? Well, in year two, if we do the same thing, we take those same 4 points of leverage and grow them again by 15%. That's a 3x in your business, 3 times your business. That's exciting. I'd love to grow my business 3 times in 2 years. Wouldn't you? Okay, let's look at year 3. Want to take a guess on the numbers? Year 3, if we do the same thing, the exact same thing, we get 5 times what we started with. And if we do it for 4 years, we get 10 times. Anybody who tells you that they know how to grow your business out of the box by 10 times is probably lying to you. They're probably some kind of consultant and they're trying to get your money. This model, and if I were you, I'd take my phone and I'd take a picture of this slide because this slide should inspire the hell out of you. This is how you get a 10x in your business. Take 4 points of leverage that interact and grow each one by 15% and do it for 4 years. That gives you 10x. Now, I have to tell you something. They don't have to be the same 4 points of leverage each year, and you can mix and match them as long as they all interact. And the ones I'm going to show you all interact. So if they all interact and you do it for 4 years, 10 times, I'd be really damn excited about that 10x. This is what I call exponential optimization. Now, there's two important words here, exponential and optimization. Now, most people, when they talk about exponential, what they mean is that it's growing really big and really fast. Exponential means something slightly different, and what it means when we're talking about an increase is that the increase is going faster and faster and faster. When I talked to you before about compounding, well, this should remind you of compounding, because the first 15% grows you 15%, but the next 15% grows you about 16.5%, and the next 15% grows you about 20%, and so on. The increases become faster and faster. That's exponential. And optimization simply means making things better over time. So exponential optimization means things are growing faster and faster, and they're getting better and better. Think about that. We're growing faster and faster, and things are getting better and better. And that's how you get a 10x in your business. Does any of this sound complicated so far? I hope it sounds pretty simple. I'm talking about math, and a lot of people's eyes cross over when we talk about math, but it's really not math. It's really arithmetic. And you learned all this stuff in grade school. So just let's buckle down and keep going, because there's more of it. So I want to show you this picture. And this is a picture of what exponential growth looks like. Now, across the bottom, the line across the bottom here is the x-axis, and let's call that quarters, 3 months. So we're breaking the horizontal line up into 3-month quarters. And the y-axis, up and down, is how much money is being made. So if we look at the blue area isn't going up, so that means there's no growth over time. We have no growth over time in the blue area. Now in the red area, there's no compounding. That's what we call linear growth. And linear growth means that we're adding the same amount for each quarter. And if we're growing $100 by 15%, that means we're adding 15 each quarter. So one quarter is 115, and quarter 2 is 130, and quarter 3 is 145, and so on. And then green, that's compounding. That's exponential growth. Remember, exponential means it's growing faster and faster over time, because each period of growth is based on the previous period of growth. The exponential curve, that's what your mortgage looks like. And that should really frighten you when you're borrowing money at a high rate. Now, here's something that's kind of exciting, which is that for 4 years with quarterly compounding, we get what? All right, let's start over. For 3 years without compounding, for quarters, we're going to get a 3 times growth, which is pretty healthy. But with compounding, for that same period of time, with compound growth, we get a 10x. 3x, 10x. That's the difference in this slide. So that is what we're going for. We're going for exponential growth, and that's what's going to make your business incredible over time. We're going to make each point of leverage better over time. This means the increases to your revenues and your profits increase. Yes, I didn't make a mistake. It means that the increases increase over time, and that's what you're going to do with your business. So how do we make each point of leverage better over time? Well, it's a really simple process. You still have to do the work. We're going to make a change. Then we're going to test to see what the results of that change were. Then we're going to track all those results, and then we're going to repeat it. Change, test, track, and repeat forever. You're going to do this forever. And remember, I mentioned this earlier, I have to tell you again, that almost any leverage point will do as long as you keep doing something. For those of you who are good at consistently executing, that's what you need for the no strategy strategy to work. Almost any point of leverage will do as long as you keep doing something. Now, this works great even if you do it badly, and it was designed that way. It was designed to work even if you don't do it particularly well. If you just stay in action and keep picking the next point of leverage, this will have a tremendous impact on your business. Now, singles beat strikeouts. Oh Lord, the irony to this slide is that I don't have the sports gene. I have no sense of sports whatever. I'm pretty sure that in my entire life, I've never watched a sports event by myself. It's fun to do with friends and drink beer, but that's about it for me. And sadly, I'm also not very good at sports games. I'm just not good at them. That's all there is to it. So if you're like me and you don't know what I'm talking about here, this is a baseball analogy, but it's a really important one. The heroes of the game of baseball are those who hit a lot of home runs. Home runs is when you get all the way around the bases. Now, the thing about home runs is you're trying hard, and trying for home runs also leads to a lot of strikeouts. So while you get these great results called home runs, you also get a lot of no results called strikeouts. In the game that we're playing here, the no strategy game, singles are easier to hit than home runs, and you tend to swing more carefully and perhaps with a little less power, and it leads to far fewer strikeouts. So singles get you consistent results, and as you've noticed, we're talking about consistent results in the no strategy, and singles beat strikeouts. Again, if you're looking for simple takeaways from this, write this on your sheet of paper. I hope you're taking a lot of notes. Write this on your paper and circle it. Singles beat strikeouts. Now, this advice will help you. Try to look away from the shiny objects. I told you before, don't shiny object things. Try to look away from the shiny objects. I don't want you to get distracted. Most of what you want to leverage, most of the points of leverage that we're going to be talking about are old, tried and true things that have been invented decades, centuries ago. I think some of these things have been invented by the Babylonians and the Sumerians. So I want you to stay with those things and look away from the shiny objects, except for one thing, which is that don't look away from artificial intelligence. Don't look away from AI. AI might be the single biggest thing that's going to happen in our lifetimes from here on out, or maybe even since before then. AI might be bigger than the internet. So I want you to understand AI because I think it's going to have a huge impact in your business. And AI is one of those shiny objects that's really worth looking at. So I just wanted to make you clear about that. Don't try to look away from most shiny objects. Keep looking at AI. Okay, I've given you a lot of preamble, and you can take this preamble and work on your business with it, and it will have impact. Let me give you more details so you know what to do. Let's talk about the leverage levers themselves. I've been saying points of leverage. I sometimes say leverage. I think it's an English affectation. But the leverage levers, I like the way it sounds. And the first one is prices. Now, most companies base their pricing on their competitors' pricing. And most service professionals underprice because they don't believe in themselves. So they base it on their competitors, and then they tend to price it a little bit less. Now, my friend Jay Abraham said to me, he said this to me a long time ago, he says that the reason most people underprice is because they don't revere themselves. It's a great word. They don't revere themselves. And the truth is that pricing is more of a head game than anything else. Pricing is more about what goes on in your mind than anything else. I teach an entire seminar on pricing, and one of my products is all about pricing. This isn't going to be that, and I'm not going to give you a whole lot of detail. But pricing is one of your biggest leverage levers. The next one is first transaction size. Now, this matters a lot because the ideal situation is when your money from the first transaction with a new customer pays for the cost of acquiring that customer, the cost that you had in getting that customer. Now, when your first transaction pays at least, if you break even, or maybe even gives you more money for that particular customer, you can't help but make a fortune. So I want you to get your first transaction size to be as big as possible. I'm going to tell you how to do that. You can do that by adding all sorts of things to what your customers buy. And I want you to think of Costco when you think of first transaction size, because Costco puts things together in bundles where you don't buy one can of Campbell's soup, you buy 12 cans of Campbell's soup. That increases the first transaction size a lot. And maybe you buy soup and it comes with noodles, and then it comes with something else that goes with it to make it delicious. Then the bundle gets bigger in a different way. So that's how you increase your first transaction size. Next, let's talk about long-term customer value. Now, a lot of gurus call this lifetime customer value. And there's a guru who says that as long as you make $1 or $100 or whatever, as long as that amount is more than the lifetime customer value, then you're profitable. Now, technically that's true, but how long do you want to wait? Now, the other thing about customer value is we're not talking about revenue, but we're talking about gross profit. In fact, we're talking about contribution margin. I'll tell you what that is in a few minutes. But we're talking about the value that comes from that customer and can be used as money that you can spend in your business. So rather than lifetime, I think of long-term, and long-term is whatever you think it should be. But specifically, I think that the right length of time is the amount of time, it's how long you can afford to finance your customer acquisition cost, how long you're willing to wait for break even. So if you spend, let's say, for example, you spend $1,000 to get a customer, and the customer pays you, let's say, $100 a month, then for you, your break-even period is 10 months, and that your long-term shouldn't be much more, and maybe even a little bit less than 10 months. So you want to consider your long-term as to how long you're willing to wait to break even on customer acquisition. I think of it as how long you're willing to finance that customer acquisition cost before you come to break even. That's long-term customer value. And there's a whole slew of ways to increase that. Next, let's talk about conversion efficiency, which is also known as closing percentage. So what's closing percentage? Well, if you had 5 prospects and you were able to turn one of those prospects into a customer, that's 1 out of 5, or 20%. But let's say you were able to raise that to 25%. So instead of 1 out of 5, it's 1 out of 4. That happens to be a 25% improvement in your customer acquisition cost. Now, what if it cost you $1,000 to get a lead, and you had a 20% closing percentage, closed 1 out of 5? That means it cost you $5,000 to get that customer. But if you closed 1 out of 4, then the cost is $4,000. Now, that's a big difference. It's a 20% difference, an extra $1,000 of profit for you with 0 additional costs. There were no additional costs. It was just you getting better at closing. Another way to think of closing percentage is how many leads do you need to get a customer? And those two they're exactly the same, by the way. But conversion efficiency has a huge impact on your business. It means that you need fewer leads to get a customer, and it's free for your business. So it's more profit and it's free at the same time. So I really like it when you can improve your conversion efficiency. Now, the next leverage point is more leads. Now, I want you to notice something, that these things all relate to each other. I'm just going to go back for a minute. Your prices relate to your first transaction size. If you sold your customer the same amount of stuff, but at a higher price, then your first transaction size got larger. So these two relate very clearly to each other. Long-term customer value also relates to price, and it also relates to your first transaction size, as well as how many other things you can think of to sell your customer. So these three things are tied together. Now, the fourth one is conversion efficiency, and that's tied into the others, but not directly. But it's going to add to profitability, as we've discussed, and then we get to more leads. Now, more leads is clearly a linchpin for growing your business. You can get more leads, and if you have more leads, then you're going to get more customers. And these two are tied together. If you get more leads and you get better at closing them, turning them into customers, then your business is growing by a compound amount. So more leads and conversion efficiency compound with each other. And then if you compound those with first transaction size, can you see how this works? All these things are working together to grow your business faster. Now, you can get more leads by having more sources of leads. You can get better at generating leads from those same sources, or you can do both. So let's say you're getting your leads from Facebook, and you get better at generating leads on Facebook. And now at the same time, you move to Google's Display Ad Network, GDN. The Google Display Network is another source of leads. And let's say you're generating all your leads from Facebook, and now you start getting leads from GDN. That's more leads. And now if you get better at both of them, what have you done? You've compounded how you're getting more leads. Now, I'm going to talk about testing in a few minutes, which is the secret to just about everything that I've been talking about so far. So testing's really important, and we're going to cover a little bit of it. The next point of leverage, and this one's a little different, and it's harder to measure. Time and money are typically the two most scarce resources in any business. Most entrepreneurial businesses don't have enough money, and the owners especially, and maybe everyone else in the company, don't have enough time to get things done. And time is the only non-replaceable resource in your business. So you've got to figure out how to use your time and how to use your money more efficiently. And that's going to multiply everything that we just talked about, because, not everything is relating to more money. Most of the things I've talked to you about are free to change. But time is important because you're going to have to put in time to make those changes. So use of time and money is a huge point of leverage. And if we can improve your use of time and we can improve your use of money by 15%, those become more things that we can compound to grow your business. Now let's talk about one. These are getting progressively weirder, I know. But because people don't think of systemization as a key to growing their business. But systemization is another really important point of leverage, and it's one of the keys to maximum growth in your business. When your business isn't systemized, it lacks consistency, and it's hard to grow because it lacks consistency. Without systemization, everyone is doing their own thing their way. And I'm going to talk more about how this works for you in a few minutes. But it's important to say that systemization is a huge key to maximizing your growth in your business. And everything that we talked about, particularly things like generating more leads and having an increased closing percentage and increasing your first sales size and growing the amount of money that a customer spends with you over the time that they work with you, all of these are dependent upon systemization, because when we find out how to do something and we figure out how to do it well, we want everybody doing it the same way. So systemization is an important point of leverage. And if we can grow systemization by 15%, what does that even mean? It means having 15% more of your business systemized. If your business is 100% systemized, then 15% means optimizing all of your systems. So that's systemization, another key point of leverage. This is a harder one, cash cycling. And it's cash cycling for maximum growth. Now, the cash conversion cycle refers to when we spend money, how quickly we get that money back. Cash cycling is usually talked about, and the cash conversion cycle is usually talked about in relationship to investments in inventory and things like customer acquisition costs. We've already talked about how long it takes to get your money back when you're spending money to get your customer. We want that to be as fast as possible. But when we buy a bunch of inventory, it's how quickly we sell that inventory and turn that into cash. The opposite of this is the time it takes that you're allowed to pay your bills without incurring penalties. So if we don't pay our bills, and we do it legitimately, the longer we don't pay our bills, we get to keep that cash and we get to use it. So between break even in a customer or spending money on inventory or really any kind of expenditure, we want to get that money back faster because we want to spend it. This is really important. The faster you get back your outlays on a consistent basis, the more money you have to spend on growing your business. And specifically, the more money you can spend on getting more customers or creating more products, which helps you build your long-term customer value. And it also helps you build your front end, your first transaction size. So the faster you get your money back on any outlay, the more money you have to spend to grow your business. So cash cycling for maximum growth is a huge factor. I had no idea about this. I learned this from a friend of mine who is a brilliant accountant who was managing the growth of Walmart's, managing the building of Walmart's. And they timed the building so here, look, they didn't time it for a building to become ready in January because it took longer for people to come into the store and spend the money. But if they could time it for the beginning of the summer, people tend to spend more money in the summer, and the summer rolls right into the Christmas buying season, which means that they got their money back faster on each new store. This was a mind revelation to me, and I've been using it ever since. This is a really important idea, and I want you to think of improving your cash cycling as an ever-improving cycle. And now, the biggest one of all, which is mergers and acquisitions, which are really acquisitions, for radical accelerated growth. This is the absolute fastest way to grow your business, and it's by buying customers from somebody else. As long as what you pay for all those customers is cheaper than it's going to cost you to create those customers yourself. Do you understand that? You're buying customers and you're buying them at scale, and you have to discount. If you're buying somebody's 10,000 customers, you have to know that some of them are going to leave. So maybe you're buying 8,000 customers if you're lucky. But this is the absolute fastest way to grow a business, is to buy customers, as long as you're buying them more cheaply than if you spent the money in your own cost of customer acquisition. But I do have to warn you, this is not easy, and there's dozens of ways to screw it up. I teach an entire course on this. And if you're going to think about acquiring somebody, you really need a professional on your team who knows how to do this. Or you've taken my courses and you've studied the hell out of them. Okay, those are a handful of the most accelerating things that you could grow your business. These are the great leverage points. Depending upon your business, there are other leverage points. I'll throw one out, which is your IP or what your product set is. If you can increase your product set, you can do a lot to grow your business. But I didn't include it in this because increasing your product set isn't simple. It's fraught with difficulties. It tends to cost a fair amount of money, and it takes a lot of time. So there are many other leverage points in your business, but the ones I've given you are the ones that are relatively cost-free, relatively easy to implement, relatively hard to mess up, and will help you grow your business faster than just about any others. Okay, let's move to a next point of the no strategy, which is the fact that sequence matters. There is no absolute right way to do this, none. You could do it in any order and it would make a difference. And if you did it in any order, you could still double your business, 3x your business, or 10x your business. But I think that what order you do it in does matter. And I'm giving you what I think is the best sequence. You don't have to follow it, but I think it's the best sequence. The first one is own your metrics. Now, I want to tell you that the sequence that I give you these metrics in is not in order of importance. They're all important. Metrics guide you in terms of what to work on and how you're working on it and how you're doing when you are working on it. Now, the thing is, a lot of people measure things that doesn't guide them to some action. If the metric that you're measuring does not guide you to some action, I'm going to say that it's worthless. So it's up to you what you do with the metrics that you measure, but you need to have a way to take action on them. Remember, I said action is paramount. So you need to have a way to take action on each of your metrics. Otherwise, they're not worth even thinking about. So the first one is gross profit or gross profit margin. Now, margin can mean money and it can mean a percentage, and it doesn't really matter. We're talking about both of these simultaneously. But measure your gross profit margin. By the way, I didn't say this. It may sound harsh of me, but I believe that you should have the numbers, have the actual measurements for these in your head. You should be able to play with them in your head while you're going home as a commuter or while you're sitting and waiting for something or whatever you're doing. These are tools to grow your business with, and I want you to have them memorized. You'd be surprised at how many entrepreneurs do not know these metrics, and it's always reflected in their business growth. So gross profit is the amount of money you take in, the revenue, minus the costs of delivering that revenue to a customer, the thing that they bought from you to a customer. And those things are called cost of goods sold or cost of services sold. So if you're selling a product, you get money for the product, revenue for the product, and then you have COGS, which comes out of that revenue, and that leaves you with gross profit. If we're talking about a service like you're a consulting service or an accounting firm or something like that, then you get paid for your services, but there's a cost of delivering those services. So your gross profit is the revenue that comes in minus the cost of goods sold or the cost of services. You should know what your cost of goods are and what your cost of services are. You should also know what your gross profit is on any particular product or service that you sell. Now, there's another kind of margin, which is the thing about gross profit margin, is if you try to run your business based on what you think the gross profit margin is, you'll likely go bankrupt, or at least you'll struggle. And the reason you'll struggle is all that gross profit isn't available for spending. Remember, we had to acquire the customer. There's a cost of customer acquisition. So something called contribution margin is your gross profit margin minus the cost of acquiring the customer. What's brilliant about contribution margin is that is the exact amount of money that you have available to spend on your business. If you think you can spend your gross profit, you can't because it didn't take into account getting the customer. So contribution margin is even more important. And you want to know those margins in your head as well as your cost of goods sold, as well as your cost of services sold. If you have lots and lots of products, it's going to be hard for you to keep track of all these things. So at least have a spreadsheet that tracks all of it that you can access easily. Your closing ratio, or its inverse, leads per customer, you need to know what your closing ratio is. So if you want to get one customer, do you need 3 leads? Do you need 4 leads? Do you need 5 leads? It all depends on your closing ratio. This is something that you absolutely should have in memory. the cost of customer acquisition, which is simply the cost of the leads that you're getting times the number of leads that you need to create a customer. That's your cost of customer acquisition, and you need to know what it costs to get a customer. Now, it may happen that you have different tiers of customers, different types of customers, and each one may have its own cost of customer acquisition. But whatever those numbers are, you need to know them. Long-term, or some say lifetime, long-term value of a customer, you need to know that number off the top of your head. What is a new customer worth to you? Growth rate, and that's year over year. So from last year on this day to this year on this day, what was your growth in revenue? And separately, what was your growth in profit? This is a really important measure of the health of your business, how fast your company is growing year over year. Another measure of the health of your business is what I call stick, and its opposite, churn. Now, stick is how long a customer stays with you and how long they keep buying from you. And if you have some sort of recurring revenue proposition, it's how many, typically measured in months, that they keep paying you in that recurring revenue. So stick is how long they stay with you. Churn is how quickly they go away. You can see those are opposites. So stick and churn might be the exact same number. We may say a customer sticks for 6 months and that same customer churns every 6 months. But those are different ways of looking at your business, both stick and churn, and they're both important. You need to know what your total revenue is. That's the amount of money that's coming in. And again, you would be shocked at how inaccurate some entrepreneurs' estimates of their total revenue is. I don't want you to live that way. I want you to know every single one of these numbers. And if you don't know them all off the top of your head, keep a book or a page in a book that has all of this information for you. I prefer that you have it in your head. Overhead is your fixed costs. Very, very important, because that comes out of your total revenue, and it has a lot to do with how profitable your company is. And your ratio between your fixed costs and your total revenue matters a lot. I said in the beginning that these metrics tell you how well you're doing, but they also guide you in terms of what to do. Typically, when you ask questions, like if you want to improve overhead, you ask the question, how can we cut fixed costs? How can we cut overhead? Things like that. Each one of these things leads to questions that you want to look to improve. MRR is monthly recurring revenue. This is usually referred to when your business has a charge that you charge every month, or if you're a SaaS company, this is the number one measurement. If we're talking about a software as a service company, is monthly recurring revenue. But it also applies to any business that has any amount of recurring revenue. Monthly recurring revenue is great, especially when monthly recurring revenue exceeds your monthly recurring expenses, or what I call burn rate. Now think about this. Let's say your monthly recurring expenses are $1,000. You should be so lucky. Let's say they're $10,000. Your monthly recurring expenses are $10,000. Your burn rate is $10,000. If your monthly recurring revenue is $15,000, then your costs are always covered no matter what else happens. So these two numbers are very important numbers for you to track. If you don't know what to do with any one of these measurements, then the question to ask is, how do I improve fill in the blank? How do we improve fill in the blank? Some things are easier to figure out, and some things are harder to figure out. But like closing ratio, you may not know how to improve your closing ratio or improve your leads per customer, but there's tons of trainings out there. And guess what? I have one. But there's tons of trainings. But if you're looking, say, to reduce your cost of customer acquisition, then we simply have to improve leads per customer. If we want to increase the long-term value of a customer, we have to find ways to sell new things to that customer, or perhaps keep that customer longer. So every one of these As you consider them, the simple question is, how do I improve this? And then you can go to Google, you can go to your local guru, your local consultant or coach, or buy an internet-based digital training program. So there's all sorts of ways to improve these, but these are the things that tell you what's happening in your business. So the very first most important thing for you to do is own your metrics. By the way, if you're going to be making a whole bunch of changes to your business, and that's what I'm advocating here, is you're making a whole bunch of small changes to your business, having your metrics and then seeing how your metrics change tells you whether you're doing well or not. So you want to start by owning your metrics. The next thing to do is to prioritize what matters most. And typically the things that matter most are leads, your conversion, pricing, and value per customer. Depends upon how you run your business to tell you whether or not that's true or not. For some people, what matters most is monthly recurring revenue. It depends on the business. And this is going to be unique to the special situation in which you find your business at this very moment. And what matters most may change over time as your circumstances change. Why is this important? Because you have two scarce resources, money and time. And you have to decide where you're going to put your money and where you're going to put your time. And if you put it randomly in one place or another, and the place where you put it isn't where the biggest change to your business is, then you're not optimizing, then you're not doing your best. Whereas if you start by prioritizing what matters most in your business, and then start making your changes, start making your optimization on the things that matter most, start spending your time and your money on the things that matter most, then you have the greatest leverage and you can grow faster than under any other circumstances. So prioritizing what matters most is second. And by the way, if you own your metrics are going to tell you what matters most in your business. So that's just one of the ways that owning your metrics will help you. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next point of leverage that I say you should work on immediately is a price hike. This is the single fastest way to improve the profit in your business. Now, you might say, I can't charge more than my customer, charge more than my competitor. So how can I raise my prices? And that's where value shaping comes in. Value shaping is how you create your messaging, what you tell your customer, your potential customers, about your products and why your product is worth more. So value shaping is the justification for having higher prices or simply raising your own prices. Now, price hikes are beautiful things because they give you increased profit without costing you a single thing. And they don't take a whole lot of work because simply on the right day, all you have to do is raise the price on your price sheet or on your website or on your proposals or however you do it. And that price hike can bring in a lot of additional money. I want to give you a little example. Let's say your gross margin is 10%. Gross margin, not contribution. Gross margin is 10%. 10% is what's left over from your revenue. And then you raise your prices 10%. Listen to what happens. Let's say you sell something for $100 and your cost of goods sold is $90, which leaves you $10, and that's a 10% margin. Let's say you raise your prices by 10%. So your price is now $110. Your cost of goods sold is still $90. You're now left with $20. What just happened? You had a 10% price hike and your profits doubled. They went from $10 to $20. I hope you understand this example, and I hope you pay attention to it. So if you can raise your prices by the exact amount of whatever your gross margin percentage is, you are going to double your actual cash coming in. You are going to double your profitability. And that's why this is such a beautiful thing. Price hike is the first thing I want you to think of. Next, customer-driven messaging. And that means, what is the customer's pain? What are their goals? And what solutions do you have that's going to ameliorate their pain and facilitate them reaching their goals? Now, I just told you that customer-driven messaging was a key to raising prices. And having better messaging is one of the keys to many things that you will do inside your business to make your business more profitable, because they facilitate sales. Customer-driven messaging will reduce your number of leads to get a customer. It will increase your closing ratio, and it will do things like help you make the second sale. What does making the second sale have to do with anything? So think about this. Most business owners sell one thing to one customer one time. I hope this is not you, and I hope you're saying to yourself, well, that's not me. We sell them a whole bunch of things. Good. Then you're in the good zone. You're in the green zone. But if you're in the red zone and you only sell one thing to one customer one time, well, I've got great news for you. By making the second sale, we could double the size of your business instantaneously. If you don't have something to sell them on the second sale, then find something else to sell them. Sell them somebody else's product, or upsell them, or cross-sell them, or do a repeat sale. If, let's say, you're in the carpet cleaning business, this, for some reason, carpet cleaning is always used as an example of this. In the carpet cleaning business, the carpet cleaner cleans your carpet one time and they never come back. The smart people call you up and say, it's time to clean your carpet, and have a whole presentation about all the grossness that's in your carpet. Let's think of a car. You've bought a car from a car dealer. Has that car dealer ever called you to buy a second car? Some do, some don't. The ones who don't are failing miserably. The ones who do are increasing the average value of a customer. So make the second sale can double your business instantaneously. Let's say you sell my famous $100, you sell make $100 sale the first time you sell to a customer, and you don't do anything about it ever after. But then you come along and you've heard Paul Lemberg talk about making the second sale, and you figure out something you can sell them for another $100, and you persuade them, because you've done great customer-driven messaging, you persuade them to buy this second thing from you. You've just doubled the value of the customer and potentially doubled the value of your business. Make the second sale is so important. That's why it's the next most important thing. Price hike, create the messaging, make the second sale. The next thing you're going to do is implement a robust testing plan. Now, even some of the famous gurus, you've seen people on stage, they always tell you, do this, I've tested it. Do this, I've tested it. The fact of the matter is, most people who say they're testing aren't testing. I don't want you to be one of these people. I want you to have a robust testing program. Now, you may have noticed that up till now, I haven't told you about any technology you should use for any particular thing, and there's a reason for that. The technology is always changing. And any technology I tell you about, when you listen to this program again in a year from now, some large part of the technology that I tell you about is out of date. So I respect you enough, and I know that you know how to use Google. Google is the way to find out what the best current technology is. So rather than me telling you what the technology you should be using is, I want you to use Google to figure it out and figure out what technology applies to your business. Now, as a simple example, Google used to have a testing suite built right into it. So you could do robust testing using the free testing suite that was in Google. And if I told you about it, that would be great, except now it's gone. Right now, Microsoft added a tool called Clarity. Now, Microsoft tends to be better at leaving tools around for longer periods of time than Google, but there's no guarantee that Clarity is going to be the thing 12 months from now. Like I said, I respect you enough and ask you to go use Google when you're ready to implement. I suggest you have a testing program in place at the very least to test your conversion ability, and another testing program at the very least to test your ability to generate leads. You can make anything better with the testing program. And testing simply means I made a change. What results did that change produce? And there's something you've heard of called split testing, and that means, let's say we have a sales page and we leave it alone and we make some changes to a second version of it and we compare the results from one to the other. That's how you get a better conversion page. If you're selling live and you change your sales pitch and you do it one way one time, and then you change your sales pitch and you look at which one was more effective, if the new one is more effective, then the old one's dead. You don't ever use that again, and you just keep making new changes. If you continue making changes and you continue testing, you can become great at anything. People say, how do I get better at conversion? How do I get better at closing? The answer is testing. People say, how do I get better at lead generation? The answer is testing. The answer is testing for everything. Now, I'm not making many recommendations, but I'm going to make this recommendation. There's a book called Always Be Testing. Always Be Testing. And it's written by two brothers whose last name is Eisenberg. Always Be Testing is a worthwhile book, not because they share technology in it, but because they give you the whole philosophy of testing. And testing is something you want to become really, really good at. Did I mention that I have a course on testing? Testing. I know that's getting a little redundant, isn't it? But testing is very, very important. And everything that we've talked about requires testing to get better at it. Otherwise, it's just guesswork. Guesswork, by the way, doesn't get you anywhere. Buy more traffic. I put more in parentheses because I don't think everybody is buying traffic. A lot of people are trying to get away with getting all their traffic, getting all their leads for free. And if you're one of those people, then I suggest that you start buying traffic. And if you're already buying traffic, then your next step in this sequence of things is to buy more traffic. There's a book called Ready, Fire, Aim by a guy named Michael Masterson, whose real name is Mark Ford. And Mark said, and he put this really beautifully, you do not have a real business until you can buy a customer. And buying a customer means that you can pay for traffic, and that's really what we're talking about is advertising. You can pay for traffic, you can pay to get leads, and then you convert some fraction of those leads into a customer. You're able to buy customers. And if you want to buy customers, if you want more customers, you simply have to buy more traffic, which is why I want you to, if you don't buy traffic at all, I want you to learn how to buy traffic. And if you're buying traffic, I want you to buy more traffic because more traffic leads to more customers. And when you're buying traffic, whether you're starting or whether you're doing more of it, always be sure to be testing what you're doing. And I want you to test small. I don't want you to test with $10,000 a day. I want you to test with like $20 a day until you get it worked out. And then when you get it working, then you can spend more money. And then when you get it working even better, you can spend more money and so on. If you're not buying traffic, now is the time to learn how and start. And if you're already buying traffic, I want you to figure out how to buy more traffic. Buying traffic is key to having a business that you can control the growth of. Irrespective of everything else that we've been talking about, buying traffic is really important. I'm building a new business right now, a membership business. And it's really important to the design of my business that every customer comes from paid traffic. Every customer comes from advertising. And the reason is simple, which is that as we figure out how to make the business work with paid traffic, how we get it to break even and so on, and how we are able to get people and get them into our program, all we have to do is buy more traffic. And that's the simplest way to do it. Because the opposite of buying traffic is to do what people refer to loosely as free marketing. Now, there's nothing free about free marketing. Free marketing, what I refer to as free marketing, are things like referrals, having affiliates send you customers, using public relations or PR, using social media, which is a lot like what PR used to be, speaking on stage and speaking on podcasts, doing trade shows. Trade shows are anything but free. None of these things replace buying traffic, but they augment it. So when I am assuming that you're already doing some of these. And when I say double down on your free marketing, I want you to do more of it. So if you're doing social media, do more of it. You might be releasing a post once a month. I want you to release a post once a week, or maybe even faster than that. If you're doing podcasts, find more podcasts to be on. If you're getting referrals, maybe you're getting referrals just by accident. People are referring to you because they think you do a really good job and they want to help their friends. And maybe they want to help you too. But if you put a referral program in place, that's what I call doubling down on free marketing. Now, the thing is, these free, we'll just keep calling them that, these free marketing tools do not replace buying traffic. They augment it. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want to pay for traffic. I want to get it all for free. The problem is all of these things are hard to control. But if you use them in conjunction with paid traffic, with buying your traffic, they typically lower the cost of buying traffic because they enhance your reputation and they enhance your visibility. The more people see you, the more likely they are to respond to your ads. The more people know who you are, the more likely they are to respond to your ads. So these free things are important. And, on top of what I just said, they do bring in leads. And some people bring in a lot of leads from using these. Most of my coaching business was originally driven by speaking. And every time I spoke, I got business. But eventually, I couldn't grow my business faster than I wanted it to because I couldn't get enough speaking engagements. That's where paid traffic comes in. So these two things work synergistically. Pay for traffic and get really good at paying and buying traffic, and then double down on your free marketing, and it will improve your paid traffic. So these two things work together, and I want you to know that. Okay, what's the next thing for you to do? Well, the next thing, I talked about systemizing. And systemize and scale and duplicate. So we already said systemizing is creating systems so that each person doing a job in your company is doing it the same way every time they do it, and they're doing it the same way as everyone else who does that job. Can you imagine how great that is? I know you heard what I said. If you got everybody doing things the same way every time and everybody doing it the same way, what does that do for you? Well, it creates consistency because you get the same results each time. It also gives you quality control, which means you get the correct results each time. So those are two very powerful things inside of your business. And what systemizing allows you to do is it allows you to scale your business, which simply means to do more of whatever you're doing. You can add more people, and that will grow your business. You can add more capacity to create your products or services, and that will grow your business. You can add more things to sell, add more products, and that will grow your business. That's scaling. Now, the thing is, if you try to scale without systemizing, let's say you add a handful of more people, but you don't have a way to show them exactly how you want it done inside of your company, well, they're going to do it however they think they should do it, and that doesn't always work for you. So if you want to scale, the first thing you have to do is systemize. Now, what's duplication? As different from scaling, duplication means adding locations. Could be adding offices, adding in different geographies, adding them to offer different services. And think about duplication. Most businesses that add a second location, I shouldn't say most, but many businesses that add a second location fail. And they fail because there are no systems, and the person running that business is some hired manager who doesn't know the right way your company does things and does it their way. And their way may not work that well. And that second office fails. And as it's failing, it's costing you a whole bunch of money, and it may cause your first location to fail. So do not ever, I repeat, do not ever attempt to duplicate your business without systemizing first. You cannot do either or any of these things well when you don't have systems. So at this stage of the game, systemizing, scaling, and duplicating. Now, do this right, do it based on systemization, and this can have a huge impact on how your business grows. I've given you a whole lot. I want to give you this. There's a Japanese word called Kaizen. You may have heard it. And Kaizen means continual and never-ending improvement. And the entire No Strategy system is based on Kaizen. Knowing what your points of leverage are, understanding how they fit together, and continually improving them. And if you do that, you can get the kind of 10x that was on that slide I showed you way back when. And that is going to make a huge difference to your personal fortune and how your life is. I promise you. There's one more thing, and it's optional. I mentioned M&A earlier, M&A, mergers and acquisition, which is really what we're talking about is acquisition. And acquisition, acquiring businesses that are synergistic with yours. They fit together with yours. And why should you do this? You could be acquiring customers, and this is the fastest way. I cannot think of another fast way to grow a business, assuming you do it right, is by acquiring companies that have customers for your products and being able to sell those products to all those new customers. Now, you also, when you acquire a business, you get their products, and you may be able to take their products and sell them to all your existing customers. Use your imagination to think of what's actually happening here. You're acquiring their customers and you're acquiring their products. You may also be acquiring people with skills and abilities that you don't have, and you may need those. You may need great salespeople, and you don't have any, but you acquire a company that has great salespeople. All of a sudden, your skill level and your ability level in selling just went way up, which points to the fact that we're not only acquiring their customers and their products, but we're also acquiring their people, and that may be a huge boon to your business. You may also be acquiring technology they have, and especially if it's technology that fits with your business, or maybe it's technology that you're buying from somebody else right now. You're buying it from some SaaS system or some other kind of online system or from some consulting firm. But by acquiring a business that fits with yours, you get their technology. That may be a huge boon to your business, and it may cut your expenses dramatically. Remember, I said, this is not easy. It's fraught with danger, and it's not the first thing I recommend, which is why I said this is optional and why I put it at the end of the list of things that I want you to do in order. Now, a note, you don't have to acquire entire companies. You might acquire specific parts of companies. And I would say that take courses on how to do this and get yourself advisors who have experience acquiring companies in your industry. In your industry matters because acquiring companies varies from industry to industry. This, if you figure out how to do it, can be a tremendous point of leverage, bigger than all the others combined. You can see how that works. So I want you to consider this when the time is right. Excuse me, I need some water. What I've given you is an incredibly powerful system for growing your business by making small changes that aren't hard to make and that don't put your company at risk and don't force you to take on oodles of debt and make it harder and harder for you to be successful. Everything that I've every single thing that I've told you over this past period of time will make your business more successful and more robust and more prone to maintaining success. People are worried about recessions, and they're always worried about recessions, whether there's one on the horizon or not. They're worried about the economy turning against them, and they use that as reasons for why things don't work. You can't screw this up. And if you do all of the things that I've taught you in this program, your business will be recession proof. I promise you that. So this is important. You cannot screw this up. And I mean it seriously. If you follow the approach that I've laid out in this masterclass, you can't screw it up. And you can't screw it up because it's easy. Just follow the steps, follow them in order, do the things I told you to do, and your business will grow, and it will keep growing. And yes, if you keep doing it the way I said to do it, 10x. 10x is totally possible. Doubling is easy. Doubling in the first year is easy. 10x in the fourth year, absolutely doable. I've shown you the math. For people who take time to understand this, you can't do it wrong because it always works. I've taught this program to thousands of people around the world, and I have never had anyone who've implemented it who's told me that it didn't work for them. So when I say you can't screw it up, I mean you can't screw it up. But just because you can't screw it up, I still thought that you might use a little extra help. And that's why I've created something that I call the Monster Growth Bundle. And what the Monster Growth Bundle is it's a combination, it's a digital delivery of all of the programs that I've created since I started designing and publishing business growth information about 20 years ago. This is every single program that I've tried to create, This is every single program that I've created, all rolled into one bundle. And it's important for you to know that none of these programs go out of date because, as I told you earlier, I create all of my programs to be evergreen, and they're just as relevant today as whenever it was that I created each of the individual programs. Now, the thing is, these programs, this bundle, is all of the tools and teaching you need to execute the no strategy in your business. I'm going to repeat that. It's all the tools and teaching you need to execute the no strategy in your business. So if you want that extra help, this is that extra help. So let me tell you what's actually in here. I call it the Monster Growth Bundle. I also call it the Ultimate Monster Bundle. I don't know. It's got a few names. It contains a program called Formula 5, which is Formula 5 is the first program that I implemented that contains the no strategy. I invented the no strategy because I wanted people have the benefit of coaching and get the same kind of effect as they would from a live coach without having a live coach. And that's what Formula 5 is. Formula 5 is the implementation and has details of every single thing that I told you to be able to do in the No Strategy Masterclass. This is the chapter and verse. Next is Turnkey Your Business. This is a complete system for creating a system inside of any business. I used to be a software engineer, and I used my software engineering experience to figure out how you would create a system for anything, because that's what I had to do as a software designer. So Turnkey Your Business allows you to build systems to systemize any business at all. Sales Voodoo is a program to help you create a cold calling machine inside of your business. Some people say, oh, I can't cold call for what I have. I can't do outbound selling for what I sell. I did an experiment when I created Sales Voodoo, and I wanted to see if I could sell a $100,000 coaching program on a cold call. And I hired somebody to do this for me, to do the cold calling. I wasn't going to do it. I hired somebody to do it. I gave them my training manuals, which were all built into Sales Voodoo, and I taught them the scripting for my kind of coaching, and I turned them loose on the phone. Now, Truthfully, this was a miserable job. I think the guy made 1,000 calls. I don't know really what the numbers were, but we were able to get a $100,000 coaching client from somebody who wasn't thinking about coaching that day by cold calling them. Sales Voodoo teaches you how to hire a sales team, how to compensate a sales team, how to recruit a sales team, how to manage a sales team, how to set up scripting for them, what all the metrics are, how to improve, and it also has a complete training system for training salespeople. It's a complete system for you building an outbound sales team for your business. And then there's Resonate 180. Resonate 180 could be my favorite program. Think about this. Let's say you've learned all the things to do. You've taken all the gurus' courses, you've bought programs, you've studied, and you're doing it all right, and you're executing because you're good at these things, but you're still not getting the results that you'd hoped for. I say that if that's true, it's because there's something messed up in your internal landscape. There's something wrong with your inner game of entrepreneurship. Resonate 180 will help you fix, help you improve, help you optimize your inner game of business. That's what Resonate 180 is. Now, there's a whole bunch of bonus programs that go with this, and I'm just going to run through them quickly. Marketing Messaging Magnet, how to create marketing messaging for your business. Getting started in business in case you don't have a business yet, or if you want to start another business. This is how to do it. The Merlin Method is how to work backwards to figure things out. The Growth Strategy Roadmap is just what it sounds like. How to Predict the Future is just what it sounds like. Business System Secrets is how to take those systems that you've built in turnkey your business and how to apply them to best effect inside of your company. Earn Twice as Much with Half the Stress is an audiobook of my second book, and I wrote this book. It was published by Morgan Janes. It's been published worldwide, and this is an audiobook version of it. Marketing Fulcrum is how to get referrals and case studies, and Turbo Time Management is how to increase your utility of the scarcest, most irreplaceable resource that you have, which is time. I told you that there was a lot here, and this suite of programs will teach you how to do every single thing that we've spoken about in the No strategy. If we add up the price of all of these programs, it comes to, I don't know, where did it go? I'm always doing the wrong thing. If we add up all of these programs, we get to $12,064, which is kind of a lot of money. It's not really a lot of money for all these programs. And truthfully, if you could use them to 10x your business inside of 4 years, or maybe even a little faster, $12,000 is nothing. But I'm not selling it to you for that. I'm selling it to you for $1,000. This is a crazy, ridiculous discount. This is $1,000 for my entire life's work over the past 20 years. And I suggest that you take me up on it, but I'm going to give you one more bonus. I've given you a lot of material in this program, and when you buy the program, you're going to look at it and go, what should I do now? How do I do this? And I don't want you to feel that way. What I want you to do is go through the material and apply it to your business in the most effective way. So if you buy this bonus, if you buy this program, this bundle, from the URL I'm about to give you, I am going to give you a bonus consultation, which I typically charge $1,000 for. And what this consultation is focused on is taking a look at your business and deciding in what order and which pieces from each of those programs you want to implement, in what order. And it's going to take all the confusion out of it and take all the chaos out of it and get it so that you get the maximum results the soonest possible. And that's what I'm all about for you, is the maximum results the soonest possible, as I said, without taking any risk and doing it quickly. So I suggest that you buy the Monster Growth Bottle, and use this URL. If you use this URL, you will be able to get the $1,000 bonus, which is working with me so that we get you on the right track and get you taking action as quickly as possible. And that's what the No Strategy Masterclass was designed to do. It's been my pleasure to spend this time with you. Use this URL to buy the Monster Growth Bundle. I don't know how long this is going to be available. You can imagine that me giving away all of my programs, me selling all of my programs for the small price of $1,000 is kind of crazy, and I'm not going to do it for very long. So don't take your time. Go get me live working with you on a Zoom call so that we can put this stuff to work most quickly to give you the greatest result. As I said, I've enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed it too. I hope you've taken it away a lot. And there's going to be a recording of this presentation so you can get the recording and watch it over and over and over again. Thank you for coming. To your excellent health and massive success, I'm Paul Lemberg. Thank you.